Welcome back to Jay Smokehouse. This will be part 3 in the interview from the social worker, John Keehn. Also, just so you know, we are picking up from where we left off on a different day, so that's why things might look a little bit different.
I'd like to do some follow-ups. I know I had some other questions last time that got a little bit windy. They were a little bit long, and we kind of really chased a lot of information all over the place. Is there any place that you would like to pick up and start a conversation somewhere that you've been interested in, or something that you've been interested in recently that that might be something that I don't know, something that you are just kind of like, oh wow, that's cool, that happened, all right, I learned something this week. Anything new on the scene?
Well, not necessarily too new, but newer. THCP. Have you heard of that?
No, this is a new one to me.
Now, I do have an episode on it. THCP is a new cannabinoid that they discovered in 2020, I believe.
Okay.
And the interesting thing with THCP is it's a 7-alkyl chain cannabinoid. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that's significant is THC is 5-alkyl chain. Okay. And you need that's basically the tail of the molecule or the cell.
THCP.
So it's THC, just like, our wonderful THC with a P at the end. Just like synthetic THC is THCO.
The THCP that you're talking about, you referenced some terms that I'd like to circle back on, just for me, because I'm not a chemist by trade. So go back and talk about these. You mentioned the structure, the molecular structure of the THCP, correct?
Yes. So the THCP, the alkyl chain is like a tail to the cell.
Yeah.
And that is what attaches to your receptor specifically.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And the reason why the alkyl chain is important is if it's 3 or if it's less than 3, it will not attach.
I see.
And if it's more than 9, it will not attach either.
Okay.
And so you want to be in that zone. So 5-alkyl chain is about in the middle.
Gotcha.
But the higher you go, the better. You just don't want to go too high.
Okay.
THCP is a 7-alkyl chain.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit bigger. It will attach, and it's supposed to affect you more. I have not actually tried it myself. I have just heard about it.
Gotcha. Right on. Interesting. So again, I think one of the things that we touched on the last time was the fact that there is just more information out there to consider, quite a bit more. And can we talk a little bit about, what do you do with all the new information? How does it sort of synthesize into, what we've been discussing about cannabis as a medicine in particular?
Well, really quick, and this will also tie into what you just said. I was also going to say another thing that I'm really that I'm seeing is CBN. CBN is a cannabinoid that we know, but they also are discovering that it is working very well with the degeneration of brain cells.
Interesting.
It's preventing it, and that's a leading cause of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big thing for me. And also it seems like that might also help somebody with like PTSD. I'm assuming. I don't really know. That's just
it's sort of an anecdotal or personal
just
reference.
That little thing I'm thinking might help, just because if it's helping with the brain cells, it might do more with the brain.
Sure. Well, I think, and this is probably safe to say for, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to claim that I'm a doctor, but I would imagine that there's overlap. We see a lot of medicines. I just read an article recently. I should do a better job of referencing where I see this stuff so that we, have some accountability. I'll work on that. But it was a diabetes medicine, and it was found to do a lot better of a job than, say, a gastric bypass for patients in terms of helping them lose weight. So we see, there's a lot of overlap, in other words. Like we look at medicine and we see pharmaceutical medicine has a lot of overlap, and you're theorizing that the CBN might have similar overlap. It makes sense that if it does one thing for one category or subcategory, that it may possibly have the same effect for another category that has similar overlapping themes. your theory was, all right, the CBN was good for PTSD, and you theorized that it was good.
Might like help with the memory aspect,
right?
Because if it's stopping
and
brain
I'm saying,
cell
okay, yeah, that
degeneration.
makes sense, because medicine, oftentimes we have these overlapping, secondary uses for medicine, right? Viagra wasn't initially created to help with erectile dysfunction. Viagra was created as a blood pressure medicine initially. In clinical trials, we see that patients would report back, the people who didn't receive the placebo reported back, hey, by the way, am I supposed to be getting these rock hard erections? Is this normal? You know what I mean? And they were all like, oh, there you go. A lot of these people are reporting back that they're having, really positive erectile functionality. And so they're like, hey, we might be onto something here. And they pivoted and they turned it into, very successful, obviously. You see on the internet, it's ubiquitous. You can say Viagra and everyone knows what you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And so they pivoted on this medicine and said, oh, hey, here's this overlapping thing that we can, take advantage of. And I think your theory about CBN may be correct. I mean, it's a theory anyways. We're not saying it's,
it's a hypothesis.
Right. It's not hard science here. We're just saying, hey, we're conscientious observers of the universe around us, and we're noticing that there are these patterns that follow
if they're
with medicine.
Proving that it's preventing the degeneration of brain cells,
right.
What else could it possibly do for the brain?
Bingo. Now, again, we'll I think work on finding some better citations if that's true. That's, again, just conjecture, hypothesis, anecdotal thoughts. But it's interesting. I mean, you kind of, I'm looking at these posters behind you. I get the benefit of sort of, having a front row view of what's on them, and it's easy for me to read and see. And there's a lot of stuff on there that, we could pick one and just, talk about it for hours and hours and hours about, potential uses and all that sort of thing. I mean, what is current now? What is the deciding factor as far as who gets what research? I mean, do we know that yet?
Who gets what research? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, so is it just Europe now, or is the United States, really peel back some of the red tape, or are they starting to?
So there are states who are doing, limited studies, but since it's Schedule I federally, it's very difficult to do those studies. Like I said in previous episodes, I think it's the University of Mississippi that is the only designated spot federally to grow for research. And so it's difficult to go around in the United States. It's becoming less so, but until we get it overturned from Schedule I, which, I don't want to go down that road right now. You can find out what I think about that in my History of Cannabis series.
Yeah. In short, we can say thumbs down.
Yes.
To that idea. Yeah. Terrible scheduling. We disagree with that. Yeah.
Psilocybin and cannabis. Yeah. You have to wonder.
We need to change the scheduling on those drugs immediately.
Why is meth and heroin on Schedule 2?
Yes. So, let me pivot real quick here. And I know that you love sort of this fast-paced style that we do. Let me pivot to something that I found out in the last week. I was speaking to what I thought was a bud tender. And I asked him, I said, forgive me, I don't mean any offense here, but, so is your title here at this dispensary, are you a bud tender? And he said, no, I'm a floor manager. And I'm not going to, disclose where I was or anything like that. I'm not trying to oust anybody. But, I asked, what's the difference? And he talked that he had gone to college and done some work in college.
In botany?
In botany, or it may be that he went to, and I didn't ask any further. I should have asked a follow-up question about, where, what, and I guess in my mind, I assumed, locally that he had done that they had offered some courses, and I hadn't yet looked up whether or not they do or not. But it seemed that he, that was the case, that he had some college education that sort of stepped him above, just being sort of a purveyor to someone who really has expertise in the field. Mm-hmm. Any comment or thought on that, or what is your knowledge as it relates to the industry, and again maybe like industry standard stuff?
Excuse me. What I know about the industry, as opposed to education, I really don't know much, because I've never gone to classes for botany or for anything cannabis related. Everything I know is self-taught from myself, things I've researched and whatnot, or from other growers or scientists that I have worked with. So
Sure.
I mean, they're like chemists will know a lot in the like distillation world or the extraction world. You really want a chemist or a scientist. In the growing world, you would want someone with that kind of background, someone with a botany, so that they know, how to keep a plant alive, what nutrients, how to tell what a nutrient deficiency. But when you're going to a dispensary, I would say you would want botany and some type of medication. Maybe not too much, but something like I think psychiatrists take a certain amount of medical school so that they can prescribe medications.
Yeah, I think in the realm of psychiatry, you're a medical doctor, and then it's sort of the reverse. You do some extra classes to sort of make you proficient in the realm of psychiatry. What I thought was interesting, though, I mean, you're kind of describing someone, the most sort of like the ideal candidate for this kind of work would be somebody with a botany background, for sure. I kind of think of, I don't know if you saw Medicine Man, the Sean Connery movie, where he's like down in the rainforest, and they're searching for the cancer cure, and it's sort of like, don't destroy the rainforest because the cure might be down here, kind of a movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember seeing that or not, but that type that's really into the idea that a lot of the natural remedies, and this is again moving away from sort of the medical standard. When you start talking about natural or homeopathic remedies, people start to sneer at that, and they kind of go, they lump you in the lot of people maybe that are more into that Eastern practice, like, I don't know, meditation or Ayurvedic healing, that sort of thing. When you talk about things, being a natural healing source, right? How do we prevent ourselves from slipping into that category?
What's crazy, like you just said, hypnosis. What's crazy about hypnosis, and I used to just discount it. It seems that there's quite a few people who it actually works for. I think that they've actually performed open heart surgery on someone who is under hypnosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's crazy to me, but it seems that certain people are more susceptible to hypnosis than others. I don't understand why. I haven't really researched that. That's actually something new that I've just learned and heard about.
Yeah.
But that's actually very interesting. But I'm learning more and more that there are a lot of things that are natural that can help us so much more than this stuff that they, I don't want to go into specifics, but stuff that we use today. Like, I try not to use medicine. For as much as I can, I try not to use even Tylenol. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that my immune system has really built back up. I'm sick a lot less than other people in my family.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting thing. And then you think about other natural remedies that aren't the medications. And I know Tylenol does come from acetaminophen, which is, a bark, but I would rather use that bark than the processed Tylenol.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that we would be, lunatic fringe to suggest, that people are trending towards organic products, natural products, healthier living, healthier lifestyles. I think there's a big push in U.S. medicine, to sort of bolster that idea that Americans, we're living in kind of an obesity epidemic, and that we need to make a lot of changes to diet and those sorts of things. And one way to do that is, just live a more natural, back to the earth kind of lifestyle in a lot of ways.
But we also need to be wary of, like, talking about how miraculous something is, like CBD. it got really popular very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And then it fizzed out. And that's because everyone was going on about how great CBD was. And it is great.
Yeah.
It's really good for certain things, but it's not like it fixes you immediately. Yeah. You have to take this stuff, continuously over a certain amount of time for it to really start to help your
and it's expensive.
Inflammation, your joints. And it is. Well, in the beginning, it really was. People were trying to take advantage. They saw that, people want this. So they charged out the rear end for CBD products.
Yeah.
But very quickly, people are realizing that it wasn't doing these miraculous things.
It wasn't doing anything. Like you could.
Some products are so diluted that
right.
it's
that's
really,
what I mean.
it's basically just water. But
yeah.
there are products.
Right.
There are products that will really help. I mean, they've helped my joints. And there is like CBD balm that I've used that really like a huge cut that needed stitches. And I did not use stitches. I just used butterfly bandages and a CBD balm.
Yeah.
And that, it healed so stinking quickly. And it really alleviated the pain, but it's not like it's Vicodin or anything. It doesn't make you forget about it. It's still there, but and so you still have to use some willpower.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. You just have to be wary about how great you talk about something, and because that can have adverse effects on how people see it, on how people see cannabis or believe you when you talk about it later in the future.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was talking about with that floor manager a little bit too. We got into that subject. There wasn't anyone in there, and so I just said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And he's like, "Sure, I'm happy to talk to you." And so we just had a conversation where I was like, "Listen, I have a friend who's doing this a YouTube channel, and we kind of have some questions. I just wanted to see if you maybe had some thoughts or some other ideas that might be interesting." And we talked about customer expectations when they go into the dispensary. And, like there's this big chasm, I think, of difference between what people, we've talked about recreational use versus medicinal use. We talked about the fact that a lot of dispensaries don't have consistent products that, give the end user the same experience over and over, or, an identifiable experience that they've had before. There's a lot of trepidation or anxiety about purchasing things sometimes, which is why he's out there in the first place, is to help people sort of sort through all that, and sort of find the right product ideally,
And that's good. But the thing is he might not have the exact background to want to talk about like medicinal products.
Right.
And I don't fault anyone for doing that. You don't want to become liable if somebody wants to sue you.
Yeah.
It didn't do what I wanted. I'm going to sue you.
Right.
And so I would
but the
like
CBD
to,
stuff that they put out there, you're right. It was so watered down. It was garbage. It was like you would buy that stuff. You would like I got some massage oil that my wife and I use, and it was like CBD infused, and I was like, oh, that's great. It'll really help alleviate it. I mean, it does nothing. I looked at it after we had that conversation. I looked at it and I was like, oh, no wonder. It's like there's like one molecule.
Little.
They say, CBD infused. There's like one CBD molecule in there, and you're like, yeah. No wonder it does not do as advertised. But it really turns people off. They're like, oh, I wanted it to work.
And that was, people are capitalizing on that fad. Everyone was going, oh, CBD could really help. And so they're going, CBD in this, CBD in that. Right. But that doesn't help the goal of cannabis is becoming more
mainstream or accepted.
Accepted for people to see it as a legitimate medication.
Right.
Which it is. It's just you can't blow it out proportion. I mean, it's like what I talk about CBN. I'm sure you can't just smoke marijuana and it's going to fix your memory.
Right.
It's that specific cannabinoid in a concentrated amount,
right?
So that you can use it. CBN is in very trace amounts in cannabis, and so it's just interesting to know that you could grow a lot, isolate that CBN, and possibly medicate someone to help prevent something like Alzheimer's. Not saying it will, but interesting. And something like Parkinson's. I mean, this has been well known for quite a while that it might be able to aid people with Parkinson's. I have seen people online. I'll try to find videos of this and link them. But people who have been smoking marijuana, people with Parkinson's, smoking marijuana live on a YouTube video, and you can physically see their body calm as they're smoking, and they're like, I haven't been able to do this in ages.
Now, can I ask you a quick question here?
Yes.
Did it show them smoking? How are they ingesting the medicine?
I'm pretty sure they were smoking.
Right.
It's been a while. This is actually a pretty early, probably early 2010s.
Right. And so
that this came out.
Here's an interesting thought I just had, just kind of sitting here, talking with you. I wonder if a lot of the trepidation about cannabis as medicine has to do with the fact that its delivery system, you can smoke the damn thing and get the medicine. They've tried doing it in capsule form before, and it failed kind of miserably. It didn't have the same, you know what I mean? Like when they tried to apply the same pharmaceutical practice to the plant,
it's because it was synthetic.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like this, I think, is a quandary for the medical community because they can't deliver it to you in an easy, convenient pill form. They're actually looking at a plant that you might have to vaporize or smoke, which is complicated. I mean, when not everyone is comfortable with that idea.
I think it's actually more potent and effective as an edible.
Oh, okay.
And that's actually better for people if they don't want to smoke.
Yeah, sure.
But I prefer smoking. But you can make a tincture with it or a butter and have a full spectrum of the cannabinoids. And that's the main thing, is isolating THC alone still isn't going to be doing all of what the full spectrum of all those 100 plus possible cannabinoids in cannabis.
Yeah.
And then also the terpenes,
right?
The terpene profile, the actual terpene that comes with the plant, not an added terpene, and then all the other nutrients that are in cannabis. I mean, I don't know if they do anything at all, but we really don't know much about it. But with smoking, you do get carcinogens with smoking, and that might not be, I don't want to condone anyone to be smoking carcinogens. I prefer to smoke it. I like that. But I think it actually is better for you as an edible. It seems to be stronger. And if you have a good emulsifier to actually make it react in your body quick enough. Because as we all know, edibles take a lot longer to kick in than smoking.
Oh, yeah. And I think that lends itself to a lot of end user dissatisfaction, because I think that people know that now, because it's sort of become more present in our culture to understand the length that it takes, because it's certainly entered into some movies. You see it in comedy skits, like somebody eats a whole bunch of brownies and then later on they have some sort of massive oops, I ate a lot of pot brownies kind of thing. That joke has kind of gotten to the point where people know, okay, hey, by the way, edibles take a little while to kick in. You got to be, and they put warnings on the products, right? It says, hey, don't take a whole bunch of these. Just give it a little time for this thing to kick in. And some people read it, some people don't, whatever. So I think, a lot of the people that end up in the hospital, by the way, are probably those people that did not really pay attention to the fact that these things are slower to absorb. And you're talking about making them faster for that, to make it so that what you're getting. The delivery system needs to be faster so that you feel the effects sort of quicker. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's what the idea of an emulsifier is you put it in your edible as you're making your product, and it will aid that it will aid the THC to kick in faster for you to get that high quicker. And the thing about that is the faster it kicks in, the faster it's gone. And if you've ever used an edible, if it doesn't kick in quick enough and it kicks in a little bit too long, I mean, you can be feeling those effects for a long time throughout the day.
Oh, much longer for sure. I mean, yeah, they sustain for quite a long time.
And it might be mild, but it will be mild for, a long period of time.
Right. And if that's the case, right, you're talking about if it's bringing some pain relief, for example,
Yes.
joint relief, having some effect on your digestive system, that you want to have sort of an extended release of that throughout the day, right? I mean, that's ideal, is that you get sort of this long dose of this thing that's helping you feel better.
Well, this is one thing I really like about the posters up here from CannabisEducationPosters.com. If you see, there's so many different receptors inside the body. It's
Right.
not just the brain, which people typically think about, where THC is typically metabolized or attaches to your receptors, which is in the brain.
Right.
There are so many receptors throughout the body. And it's not just CB1 and CB2. There are, as you can see, several other receptors, and they're throughout the body and through the legs and the torso and the arms. It's amazing how many receptors we have. And if we have those, why wouldn't we want the other cannabinoids in order to have a full spectrum effect?
Right.
Because sure, when you have CBN or CBD, it doesn't really get you high. But how do we know that it's not having a direct effect on your high? And I know that this is already known with the entourage effect, but many people disregard this and think that this is just tomfoolery. And I truly want them to understand, or at least look at it more, because it's not just THC, which
Right.
I love THC.
Sure.
It's very fun, but there's so much more to cannabis.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic point. I wish it'd be nice if at some point in the future, and this is just me, I'm just kind of prattling here for just a moment, but you walk into a dispensary and you've got some concerns about some abdominal or gut motility. You feel maybe your sleep's a little bit off, right? And you have some other smaller, less symptoms, and you walk up to a computer screen and you type in those symptoms. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you need this is the plant that's going to, we've grown this plant. We've been waiting for someone just like you to come in and we've got this medicine prepared for you, that's going to cover those symptoms and have a particular endocannabinoid effect, sort of selecting the cannabinoids, selecting your terpenes, all those sort of little profile of the thing, and being able to sort of select that up and then ingest it. Mm-hmm. And have it do the thing that you need. You know what I mean? Like, okay, here's your $5, 5-day supply of this. Smoke this 3 times a day, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then you'll sleep better. Your gut motility will change, and you'll whatever. You won't have as much pain in your lower back. I mean, that's the ideal to me, right? I mean, is that not the end game for producers of marijuana or products in the United States? What are they trying to go for? What's the big hill that they're going to die on?
Well, that's what I hope that they're going for, is a medication, but it's also, I mean, it truly does. It helps you. I mean, when you're on cannabis and you go out, like let's say you're in nature, you think about when you are on cannabis in nature, you're really taking it in. You're really looking at things.
It's relaxing. It's very peaceful. Sure.
It's enjoyable. Yeah. It allows you to focus on those little things out there, and it really puts things in perspective. And then, I mean, not just that, all the things that it can help with medicinally, and then opening up your receptors. I mean, I've had some of my best conversations with people on cannabis. Yep. Now, sure, sometimes you can have a little bit of memory issues. You can get caught up. But, I mean, the focus you can have on one idea and actually listen to somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge thing in today's world, is there's so many people that aren't listening. Yeah. They wait for people to stop talking. Sure. That's so different than listening.
Yeah. And it certainly, you could draw a lot of conclusions about just, connectivity, how people connect, and the fact that we don't connect the way that we used to, and that sort of thing, for sure. I think that, the ideal for me in the future would be something that, we get away from the sort of panicked, ill-informed fear that people have about cannabis, that it moves away from that Schedule 1, and I think it will, because if we look at the United States, the population in the United States is changing quite a bit, right? We have a lot of younger people who are going, yeah, we've known pot's been great for a long time. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you're not telling us anything we don't already know. You know what I mean? But I think that this lends a lot of credibility to, and again, I'm not trying to be ingratiating here, but I mean, I think this is why I think your show is so important, really progressive, in the sense that it's like, I think it's part of that mainstream conversation that why are we not talking more about this stuff? Why is mainstream media not absolutely ablaze with, these sort of changes that this generation wants to see?
Well, that's a
big one. I know.
Well, that's the scary part with cannabis with so many people is so many people or companies see it as a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about alcohol sees it as a threat. Tobacco sees it as a threat.
Yeah.
Paper companies see it as a threat.
Sure.
I mean, hemp can be renewed so fast and easily with so little land.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone and so as always, please leave a comment, a like, and let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button if you'd like to stay up to date with videos coming out in the future. And now, as always, Jay is going to go smoke a J.